Hello, Bill.
Good morning, Matt.
Welcome to the DMZ, everybody.
This is the final pre-midterm election DMZ where I don't know if we've always done this, but there are times when we have given our predictions. And I'm pretty thankful that no one has kept a record of past predictions.
We need a super fan of the DMZ army to go through and do, an exhaustive report on our past predictions.
And I will say as a disclaimer, these are for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah, please no betting, no gambling off of these predictions. Let's jump right in, Bill. This has been much awaited, much anticipated, and I think the way we should do it is I've taken the liberty of going ahead and putting on a poster board my picks. I have to say I wrestled with them greatly. But why don't you go first? I'll tell you the state. You make the call, and then I will tell you mine. And we should start with the one that I wrestled with the most, Bill. This is the one that I really am torn over.
Before you get there, I just want to point out that I don't have as classy a whiteboard setup as you. I'm using an old fridge magnet chore board, which never really got properly used because my kids don't do their chores. And I've put this on. This is the exciting part. This is a birthday gift. This is a 1950s era voting machine demo with the old school levers.
You were the Karl Rove of the DMZ with the dry erase board. By the way, this is a great excuse for people to go to youtube.com/Matt Lewis and watch the video as opposed to listening. We'll try to keep the radio listeners on board as well. Let's start with the first one. I wrestle with it greatly, Bill. It's Pennsylvania. It's John Fetterman versus...
Before I make my final call, what does your mom say?
You know what? I had lunch yesterday with my mom, but lately she has been bringing her sisters with her. Remember I showed you that picture?
Yeah.
And so yesterday she brought 3 of her sisters with her, 2 of whom are very Trumpy. Mm-hmm. And so I intentionally did not bring up politics at all. I'm going to make a phone call with mom and try to find out. But I will say this. I think that the exposure to my aunts, it wouldn't surprise me if that pushes her back into the Republican column in Pennsylvania.
You don't have any idea her reaction to the debate?
I have no idea yet. I'm going to call her and find out.
You are useless, Matt. Useless.
I'll get, do you want to do like a conference call? This would be a great, remember I interviewed her on my podcast after Trump won because she voted for Trump. I'd love, maybe this calls for another mother-son podcast. Anyway, John Fetterman versus Dr. Oz. Bill, this one, as you know, Fetterman was in the lead the entire race. And then obviously last week he had that disastrous debate. Who's going to win?
I agree with you. This is a tough call. And I was very bullish on Fetterman up until the debate. Debate definitely makes me pause. But I'm going to say Fetterman hangs on.
All right. Let's see the board. I want to see it. So you can't take it back. All right. Bill, you and I are in agreement.
Whoa.
I have picked. You can see, you get a sneak peek on my next pick, but I have got John Fetterman winning in Pennsylvania. I really struggle with that one. At the end of the day, it came down to vibe. I think Fetterman just fits Pennsylvania, and I don't think Dr. Oz does. And then the question is, does the wave outweigh all that? And maybe, and if then of course the debate performance.
Well, before we go, I think one of the big questions here is: are we seeing a real bona fide wave or not?
Yeah. And I know you've
if it's a big wave, I mean, and this is one criteria for a wave. Waves buoy bad candidates over good candidates.
yeah. And I would say, for my purposes, when I'm using the term wave, I'm using it loosely. I think it's a Republican year. The wind is at their back. And is the wind blowing enough to blow Dr. Oz from New Jersey into Pennsylvania into the U.S. Senate? Second race, Bill, you already saw where I voted on that one,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
It's Georgia. It's Herschel Walker versus Raphael Warnock. I mean, Herschel Walker is a candidate who has admitted to fathering multiple illegitimate children. He's a Republican who has allegedly paid for 2 abortions. But again, is the wind blowing his direction? What say you?
I'm sticking with Warnock here. I see, poll tightening. It's in the more credible polls. I don't really get a sense that Walker is getting ahead of Warnock, and nothing's really happened in the race to suggest that Walker's found a groove. The only argument would be it is such a big wave year that it carries him over. But I think Warnock is a particularly good candidate. He has run a good race. He has a bipartisan message. He has strong ads. He's got a warm, cuddly vibe. Nothing has happened to make me suggest that he's gotten knocked off his path.
Okay, and I'm going to ask for the sake of TV production values that when you review but first, when you reveal your pick, the first thing you should do is show it.
Okay.
All right. I went the other direction. I have gone with Herschel Walker, and I'm a little less torn on this one than Pennsylvania. It's got to do with vibe again. I just, as crazy and weird as Herschel Walker is, he seems more normal to me than Dr. Oz, and I don't think Raphael Warnock is as good as Fetterman was, or is as likable as Fetterman was.
Well, the was is the key thing here. I actually think Oz has done a relatively good job at pivoting
in the last couple of weeks.
Right.
Yes.
Well, that's right.
It took him a long time to do that.
And part of my calculation in general here is because I'm not going on the presumption that this is such a big wave that bad candidates get carried in the tide. But I'm being a little more partial to candidates who I think have made the Republicans who have made the adjustments and sanded down the rough edges. And so I give Oz some credit for, I think, he's trying to frame the race as I'm the reasonable guy and Fetterman's the extremist.
Yeah.
Like
now, let me just say, Bill,
a smart frame.
Bill, not to get ahead of ourselves, we've only made 2 picks, but you have picked 2 Democrats.
Yes.
You picked Fetterman, like me, but you picked Fetterman to flip a seat, and you have picked Warnock to hold that seat in Georgia. And I think we could probably extrapolate already that it seems like we'll find out, but it seems like maybe you think Dems are going to hold the Senate.
Let's have a little suspense here, shall we?
Let's have some suspense. I'll keep them in suspenders. Let's go to Arizona.
Okay.
Where Mark Kelly is the incumbent seeking to fend off Blake Masters, the Republican, who was considered kind of a bad candidate, but has been surging lately, or at least has tightened it lately. Where are you, Bill?
I'm going to give it to Kelly. I think Masters is a particularly bad candidate. He has lagged the other Republicans in almost every poll that I've seen. Yes, he has come up. I think there's definitely base consolidation there. But Kelly, I think, is also a particularly good candidate. And I don't see evidence that Masters is getting that last extra bit of swing vote that he would need to pull off the upset.
And of course, let's see can you see?
I see it.
What I've picked. What have I picked?
You picked Kelly.
I have picked Kelly, so we're in agreement. And I think for the same reason. I think not only is Masters a bad candidate, I think Kelly's a pretty good candidate. So, again, the experts tell us that waves, um, that waves, they all break the same way, and we're kind of going against the wave. We're swimming against that premise, right? I think we're saying that there are cases where candidate quality matters. Now, not in Georgia, in my opinion, but anyway.
Well, wait,
Number
but
four,
you're arguing that Walker has an everyman vibe that is
I
actually a
do.
positive quality.
Yeah. So in a way, I am being consistent. Um, Number four is Nevada. You've got Cortez Masto fending off Adam Laxalt. And who do you have?
This is my first Republican flip. Laxalt.
And we are in agreement. Laxalt.
This is actually a tough one for me because I don't think Laxalt is a particularly great candidate. I think Cortez Masto is a fine candidate, not as strong as Kelly or Warnock or pre-stroke Fetterman. But almost everything I've seen in the polling suggests that Nevada is just going the other way in general. The Democrat governor is trailing. Looks like Dems will lose 2 congressional seats. But also, this is just a big asterisk to put on Nevada. There's a lot of population churn that I think people don't recognize frequently, and Nevada is particularly so in that case, very transient state. So in that case, so it's very hard to take the poll, and there's a history of Democrats outperforming polls in Nevada. Dems have trailed in a lot of races in Nevada and have overcome that, which has always been credit to the Reid machine and the work of the Culinary Union in Vegas. And so this is the first test of the Reid machine with Reid no longer with us. So it wouldn't shock me to have Democrats have a repeat performance and overcome the polls. But with fairly consistent trailing, even by a little bit. There are certain polls where Cortez Masto, I think, is tied or just behind by 1 point. But with the general lean that way, and with it being generally a Republican year, and Laxalt not being an awful candidate, he's not super duper insane. And I think the gubernatorial candidate Lombardo is also someone who's done some pivoting. I think that's why I give Laxalt the edge.
All right. And by the way, we should have mentioned with Walker and Warnock, it very well could go to a runoff. So we may not know.
I'm a little tempted to say that Warnock wins outright, but
I'm going to say Herschel wins. But but again, I just want to throw that out.
I want to see a bit more polling as we close before I say something like that with any kind of.
With the Nevada race, you were picking. Not only are you picking a Republican, but that's a flip.
Yes,
that's a Republican taking.
So I've one Dem flip, one Republican flip right now.
All right, and I have one Dem flip and 2 Republican flips right now.
So you have a net 1. So as it stands, Republicans would take over.
That's right. Next race, number 5 on our list, is North Carolina. Bud versus Beasley. It's been a close race, but what do you say, Bill?
I have hope for Beasley, but I got to give this to Bud as it stands. It's necessarily not been enough. Like, polls have been either Bud up or tied. Nothing really with Beasley up that I'm aware of. And North Carolina has been just out of reach for Democrats for a long while. So I don't have any reason to believe this is the year. This is the year that North Carolina tips blue. Like, one of these things I think it's going to happen, but I can't say with confidence it's right now.
We are in agreement on this one. Okay. Next race, number 6. Ron Johnson versus Mandela Barnes in Wisconsin. What say you, Bill?
As much as I hate to say it, I have to say Johnson hold.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. there was definitely a point, a month ago when the polls flipped. Barnes was up in the summer. Johnson took over in September. This is the one race where there's been a clear lead change in the Senate field. Since that point, you're not seeing Johnson run away with it. He's not. He's not. At least in polling, it's not a blowout. Barnes is hanging in there. So, as is the cliche thing, there's definitely. I mean, a lot of these questions, a lot of these races really are turnout questions because they're close races, and pollsters are making estimates what they think the makeup of the electorate's going to be. Democrats have had problems in Wisconsin with turnout busts, particularly in 2014 and 2016. I'm not super confident that Barnes gets a turnout bust. He might get very robust city turnout. Obama's in there as well, hyping up the troops. So a Barnes upset wouldn't totally shock me, but I can't, put my marker down on it.
Yeah, I'm with Johnson too. He once again dodges the bullet. No, not to use violent political rhetoric, but he escapes. By the way, just so I'm keeping track here, Bill, we have disagreed how many times? We disagreed on Walker.
Just Georgia.
Is that it?
That's it.
That's it. Okay. All right. Next race is Ohio. J.D. Vance versus Ryan. Tim Ryan?
Tim Ryan.
I can never remember this guy's name. I think Ryan is run a great campaign and very temperamentally just fits Ohio. On the other hand, it's a very Republican state. What do you have?
It's a very Republican state.
Yeah.
I gotta give it to Vance. Again, this is definitely Ryan outclasses Vance in a million ways, and he's gonna overperform. No question, he's gonna overperform. But I don't think he can quite get over the finish line. Where are you? You're showing me other states. There you are. I see it.
I'm having this poster thing is not going well. Let me fold it. Hang on. I'm with you. I really feel. Did I got the right thing up? Yeah.
Yep.
I really feel like Ryan. If Ryan, I said this before and I'll say it again, if Ryan can't win in Ohio in 2022, no Democrat could win. Maybe if Ryan was an incumbent or something, he might have, but it's just, I just feel like Ohio is too far gone for Dems. But you know what? This one, I think, could surprise us. So I'm on the record with Vance, but I'm just going to, I'm going to put a little asterisk there as my dark horse race.
Okay.
All right. Next one is New Hampshire. Bolduc versus Hassan.
A race where just yesterday, a credible New Hampshire pollster gave Bolduc a 1-point lead. I think his first lead, maybe his only lead I've seen in polling. And that's St. Aldsom University, if I remember correctly, or college, which had a very good track record in New Hampshire in 2020. But it is just one poll, and Bolduc is crazy, and Hassan has not made any mistakes in this campaign. So I'm giving that to Hassan and another Democratic hold.
Yes, I'm with you. Same thing. I think if Republicans had nominated someone other than Bolduc, then it would be in the red column.
Sununu would have made it a race.
Then it would have been in the red column. Next race, Florida, Val Demings versus Rubio. I don't think this is too controversial, but what do you have?
As good a candidate as Demings. I thought Demings has run a very good race, but as good as she could. And she had I think, a fantastic debate, and yet no evidence that that's made any impact on the polls whatsoever. Florida's just looking like less and less of a purple state, and so you got to give it to Rubio.
Agreed. And then last is I shouldn't show it.
You don't have Iowa on your list here?
I don't have Iowa. I have Colorado, but maybe
I think
maybe I should.
we got to talk Iowa here, Matt.
Well, this is Chuck Grassley.
Yeah,
who's a Republican. He's 100 years. Well, he's 85 years old.
He's 89 years old.
Okay, he's old. And I have to assume that Chuck Grassley comes back, that he wins re-election. But what are you hearing?
I mean, I would say the same, but if there's, you think Ohio might be a sleeper, which I don't disagree. I mean, there's a possibility for a lot of sleepers here. We have a lot of close races. We have a lot of polling.
But I agree, but the one race. So, like, I'll give you an example. If Oz won in Pennsylvania, even though I picked Fetterman, if Oz won, I wouldn't really be surprised. And I don't, but I think the race that has the chance to surprise people is Ohio.
Well,
that's my take.
Iowa's a state.
I guess if Chuck Grassley loses, that would be a shock as well, especially in a Republican year, right?
Right. Look, Iowa's a state, and this is not that unusual. We have a lot of states that are lightly polled, just simply not many polls at all. And I just wrote in Real Clear Politics, we have several examples of candidates outperforming polls, outperforming their averages. For various reasons, some for unknown reasons, and often our knee jerk is, well, the polls were wrong. It just might be that there were things happening below the surface late in the game that polls can't easily pick up.
Sure,
because they only can sample so long, and there tend to be snapshots of that moment in time, not necessarily forward seeing. And if you got a race like Iowa, where there's like what, 2 polls out there. If stuff's happening under the surface, you just don't know. You're flying blind. And so we had the Des Moines Register and Seltzer poll, which is highly respected. I don't think she is an oracle. She has been wrong. So I'm not saying this means that it's going to happen exactly as she pegged it, 2 weeks ago. But she had it as a 3-point race, which has certainly given Franken, momentum, money. He's on the air. He's got a message. I think he's running a good campaign. Grassley is pretty freaking old, and so that might give people pause. It's definitely sleeper potential, but I'm not going to go out there and say Franken's got it in the bag, and so it's another.
Right. So that doesn't change our numbers. And then, did you do Colorado? What do you have for Colorado?
Oh, that's Bennett. I don't think
this is Bennett versus O'Day.
Yeah, and this is the kind of thing where O'Day is a perfectly good candidate. He's a more reasonable, moderate-ish candidate. But it was always hype. There's never been any numbers to suggest that O'Day is making this a race. And Bennett's a perfectly solid Colorado middle-of-the-road candidate.
All right, let's go to the House.
So our final.
Oh, sorry. We should recap. We should recap right where we are.
So since our only difference is Georgia, that's a big difference because for you, it makes it Republican 51, Democrat 49.
Yep.
For me, it makes it once again 50-50.
Which means Democrats would control the Senate. So
yes,
there is a big difference between us. I am predicting Republicans will take the Senate. You are predicting Democrats will hold the Senate.
Yes, I am.
So that's a big, even though we only disagree on one race, that's a huge difference. I mean, that could be a Supreme Court justice.
Absolutely. And not to mention all the judicial nominations below that.
So there you have it. It's interesting that we only had one difference. Let's see how good. Let's see how good we are.
How did you do your House stuff? Did you do race by race?
For House, all I want you to do, Bill, is write down the number of seats you believe Republicans will pick up.
Okay.
On Tuesday night.
Okay.
And hold it up when you're ready. And I've done the same. I will show you after. I've already written mine down, so I can't change it based on yours. What is your number?
I have 19.
19.
Plus 19, which I think is on the touch below what the other projectors are saying. I'm pretty close there, 23. Like Cook had a range. Cook had a range of 12 to 25. Fox just came out with I think they had their middle of the road was 23. They had a plus or minus 13 on that, so it's actually 10 to 36.
Plus or minus 13.
Yeah.
That's pretty handy.
Well, look, I mean, look, you're really a lot of flying blind here.
25, Bill. The average for a midterm, I believe, is like 25.
Well, I just did this. I just wrote a big piece about this for the monthly, about what makes a wave.
So okay, let me just again, because we're parsing language here. If the average is 25 seats and I'm predicting 23, you could argue that below average is not a wave. It is, according to the way that I'm using the term. Winning 23 seats is a wave. So it's not a tsunami, but I just feel like part of the problem has been a lack of just a difference over semantics.
Well, so let's just lay this out here, though. Okay. I mean, you're welcome to read my article, which does lay it out, but I'll just sum it up for here. There is no set definition. There's no agreed upon definition of what a wave is. Number one. Here's what's been put out there. There was a political science professor, Alfred Tuck-Farber, in 2014. He said there was a semi-formal definition of a gain of 20 or more seats in the House is a wave, although in his essay, he then sought to suggest that was too high a mark because we have fewer and fewer contested House seats. So perhaps we consider things less than 20 to be a wave.
Bill, that actually is a valid point. If you win 23 seats in today, it's a big deal because Republicans had already sort of gotten some of the low-hanging fruit, and a lot of their gerrymandering and such that some seats are just ungettable. So to win 23 this year is a big deal.
Now, Amy Walter, Cook Political Report in 2018 had a piece where she suggested if the party out of power picks up significantly more seats than they needed to win control, and winning competitive seats by big margins, not winning 1 or 2 points to get there, but by winning, 5 to 10, arguably. But having said that, winning Republicans need 5. So is 10 a wave? Is 15 a wave? You could make that case.
Yeah.
Now, Stu Rothenberg has always said, and it's something I indicated before, when momentum is built up on one side that washes ashore candidates who otherwise wouldn't win, second-tier candidates, long shots. So if a Walker wins, if a Blake Masters wins, you could argue that's
but then the question is, do they all have to win, right? So, like, for example, if all the Republicans win, but John Fetterman wins, would you say, well, it wasn't a wave? It didn't lift. A wave lifts even rickety small boats, and Dr. Oz wasn't lifted. So I think one could argue under a certain definition of a wave that if Fetterman wins, it's not a wave.
Right. Now, Dave Wasserman at Cook Political has suggested, from what he's seeing in the current data on the House side, that blue state Democrats are having a tougher time than some red state Democrats. So you might see sort of an uneven wave where, Alan Fung beating Seth Magaziner in Rhode Island 2, or George Logan beating Johanna Hayes in Connecticut 5, you might say, well, that's a wave. But if Sharice Davids is winning in Kansas, maybe not, so that's where things can get a little tricky to analyze.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was a paper done by a couple of poli-sci profs, Jacob Smith and Rob Oldham. They set a much higher numeric bar. They said, let's look at the 20% of elections where the President's Party lost the most seats in the last 100 years. So to be in that high quintile, you need to pick up at least 48 seats. So I put out there my own suggestion, which is sort of what you were getting at before. Let's look at the averages here. Now, even that is not totally simple because the average, if I look at post World War II, because in the New Deal period, you had these super duper Democratic majorities. So if I take those out of the equation, I go after World War II, the average is 26 seats. But if I look at the last 4 midterms, the average is 37 seats. We're in a period of very high volatility. So that point that the other prof was making, that 20 is too high a bar because we have so fewer competitive seats, that's not true in the last 4 midterms. Yes, we're very polarized. Yes, things are very vicious. Yes, there's gerrymandering. Yet we've had big swings. We had 63 seats. So Dems had 30-seat gain in 2006. Republicans 63 seats in 2010. And in 2018, Democrats gained 41. So if Republicans come in at 23, in this period that we're in, it would be the 4th House flip in 5 midterms.
I think the one asterisk to that, though, Bill, is, correct me if I'm wrong, in 2020, when Donald Trump lost, Republicans actually picked up House seats.
Yes.
So some of the seats
sort
of
of consolidate the two and say it's sort of like a slow motion wave.
Yep. You get the point. Bill, this is congratulations on a great column. This is something that anybody could have written, and you did it. Nobody thought to do it, or at least not in a long time.
Well, it was a little weird because when you stop and think about it, it's not that hard to spot that we've had these big swings. But I think
we all want to accept this sort of vernacular nomenclature or whatever terms of art, and we talk about them without defining them, and no one's ever really definitively defined it.
There were these columns. I did see what is a wave columns in some of these other years, but I haven't seen anyone do it this year for whatever reason. And just the point, so Republicans gained 14 seats in 2020. So if you say, okay, they got 14 here and 23 there, they got to the 37. It's kind of wave-ish. But again, Democrats got 41 in 2018. So again, you're still seeing high volatility, even though there's rigidity, even though there's partisan tribalness. There's still a middle. There are swing voters. Swing voters still exist. There might be fewer of them, but they certainly matter. And 2, these polarized ideologues, they don't always show up. So if they're not always showing up, that leads to instability and volatility. And so that seems to be what's going on right now.
I want to talk to you in a bit about the Pelosi attack and about Twitter and Elon Musk. But first, we should probably at least talk about a couple governor's races.
Yeah.
I didn't do the poster board thing with this, but
okay.
The only governor's race I'm really keeping an eye on is Arizona, and
it's the big one.
I'm assuming we agree that Kari Lake is going to win in Arizona.
But this may just be internal bias, but I can't. Those words can't escape my mouth. I'm gonna argue Hobbs pulls this out.
Oh wow!
Look, we've had. I just tweeted this.
So this is our second. This is really our second disagreement of the day in terms of races.
So I tweeted this out last night. Hold on. So 3 very recent polls from credible outlets. I think in fact all three of these came out yesterday. Fox News has Lake 47, Hobbs 46. New York Times has absolute dead heat, both at 48. Univision, which does some oversampling of Latinos, not that it throws off the weighting, but there's always an argument that polling Latinos is hard, so you want to get an oversample so you can do good weighting. They have it under registered voters, Lake up 2, 42-40, with likely voters, dead heat, 44-44. So, at minimum, this is a nail-biter race.
But don't you think a tie goes to the Republican this year?
Well, there's a perfectly sound argument for that. A general Republican trend, give her the edge, stronger on the stump than Hobbs is. It's not an illegitimate case by any stretch. Here's where I think, I can't say I can argue this with confidence, but here's where I think the Hobbes argument comes in. Okay. Close race. I mean, what is the clash of narratives that we are seeing, not just in Arizona, but in general? The Republican argument is very much inflation's out of hand, crime is out of hand, and Democrats have their head in the sand on both of those, right? And in Arizona, I think immigration, comes in there strongly as well. What's the Democratic counter? Yes, abortion. There's a whole lot of abortion messaging going on. I do think we're having a bit more of a lean in these last days about democracy, threats to democracy. And Carrie Lake is somebody who has not sanded down those rough edges. She is someone who's out there saying, hey, I'll accept the results if I win. We even heard, Trump, we hear this documentary footage, not that every voter sees this, but we're documentary footage of Trump on the phone with Blake Masters, and he's chiding Masters. Carrie Lake, yes, Carrie Lake, how's your family? She says the election of 2020 was stolen. And you're seeing Democrats, Obama, I just saw Obama on the stump in Nevada last night. He was leaning on that pretty hard in Nevada, trying to pin that on Laxalt and on the Secretary of State candidate Marchant. 60 Minutes. Someone said to me the other day, people watch 60 Minutes, they vote. These are old voters and they vote. And you had a standalone segment in 60 Minutes about Arizona candidates going off.
Yeah, it was good. They had the Secretary of State and the Attorney General, I think, on. Or who was it? Anyway, they had Republican.
The current Republican AG saying this is a grift.
Yeah, Brnovich, right?
Right.
Brnovich. It was a good segment.
So we have all mocked Katie Hobbs for not debating. I don't see a lot of coverage about that in the final week. I feel like that news cycle is kind of done. And look, she is running a low-key campaign. There's no big Hobbs rallies, though Obama's coming tonight, so there'll be one tonight. But generally speaking, she's not been a rally. I mean, she did a housing roundtable yesterday. That's what Katie Hobbs did.
Just just a reminder of how good, and I know to a lot of people his shtick is old, and we've heard it before. But man, that guy, he can turn it on. He could turn it on the stump.
So I feel like, to the extent there is coverage in Arizona, and my vibe is that Arizona is not saturated with political news coverage. So you do have a problem with people sort of not paying close attention. But that also comes with, do they pay attention now? Are they keying in now? And is the coverage in Arizona going to be, is Carrie Lake too crazy for this job? Can I trust Carrie Lake to protect democracy? Is it a referendum on that? And if Obama comes in today, presses that point hard. I mean, I saw Obama say last night in Nevada, when I ran against John McCain graciously conceded. I bet he's going to say something similar tonight, maybe even with more emphasis.
Yeah.
And appeal to those McCain Republicans who still exist in Arizona. So there may be things happening in these last days that could tilt this in Hobbs' way.
I think this is happy talk, Bill. I think this is you wish casting. I don't think. I mean, I think it's sad that people don't care that much about democracy, at least not in 2022. So we shall see. We shall see.
Well, I'm being open that I have a certain degree of bias here, but what I've laid out, what do you think of that as potentially wrong? Is it just simply that people don't care? Threat to democracy
That's the fundamental point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's I'm not saying that's a bad point. And there's not a ton of evidence up to this point to suggest that is dominating people's thinking. The question is, I mean, it's like with crime. A lot of the summer, early fall polls, crime was not high up on the list. The Republicans prosecuted the case very vigorously in their ads, and you see it come up, at least in certain areas. If Democrats lean on that hard in the final days, and with crime, if you have a candidate saying something that you can use as fodder, like Mandela Barnes said enough things in Wisconsin to make those arguments, make those punches land. Kari Lake has said plenty of things. You can make that punch land if that becomes the top issue. You got to make it the top issue. If it's not the top issue, then the argument doesn't pan out.
I think you have made the most compelling case someone could make for your candidate.
So one other thing. If Kari Lake was a Democrat and Katie Hobbs was a Republican, and there was this sense that Kari Lake should win, and the final polls were dead heat to 1 point, 2 point polls, how many stories would we see that said, why can't Kari Lake put this away? Why can't Kari Lake close the deal? What's holding her back? I mean, shouldn't there be a question? Why isn't she running away with this?
Well, I mean, I think Arizona's a purple state. Right now they've got 2 Democratic senators.
But no Democrat governors in a good long while.
Yeah, and it's obviously an open seat. So I would say, Bill, I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. But this is not one that I feel pretty confident in this prediction.
So we took over some other governors.
Well, I have nothing to say about the others, but if you want to make any quick predictions on other governors, now's your chance.
Well, I can't feel good about Sisolak staying in Nevada. Though again, perhaps democracy, the pro-democracy will do rise up, but as it stands, I will say that's a flip. New York, I know everyone's all hot to see Zeldin beat Hochul, but I don't see that happening. I think Democrats are kicked into gear in enough time to remind folks that Zeldin is hardly a George Pataki moderate.
And that one is interesting. I lied when I said I didn't have anything to say. All I'll say is that one is definitely an interesting race. And obviously, because it's New York, it's going to be closely watched.
Yeah. And like crime has definitely become a bigger thing out there. You're seeing crime, I think, a really big deal in New York and Oregon. Oregon's also there. There's a nail-biter governor's race. That's the 3-way race. Democrat Tina Kotek, the Republican Christine Drazan, and the Independent Betsy Johnson, who is a nominal Democrat, but has been the meanest towards Democrats in the race. I think Kotek is going to pull that out. I think Democrats are going to come home a little bit, even though there's definitely a lot of anger towards Democrats from Oregon moderates who are sick and tired of crime in Portland, homeless encampments, drug overdoses and such. But I think Johnson's number is going to come down. And you can't say all of Johnson's votes go to Kotek. There's some of those are going to go to Drazan. But I think, that's been like a 1-2 point race in Drazan's favor in the current polling, with Johnson in the high teens. I think if Johnson comes down, low teens below 10, I think Kotek can get enough there to eke that out. And Oklahoma's a sleeper with the Democrat Joy Hoffmeister leading in most polling, but again, not that many polls. I don't know if I'm confident she can go all the way. I might give the edge to Stitt there, but that's sort of leading into fundamentals as opposed to actual polling data. What else is out there that's close? Because Georgia's not close, Pennsylvania's not close, Texas is not close, Florida's not close.
Did you say Michigan?
That's not close. Whitmer's got that.
Yeah. All right, let me propose something, Bill. We're coming up on the 45-minute mark. So I think we have a few options here. We could take this episode, what we just done, put that on Patreon exclusive to our patrons, or we could take this 45-minute episode, what we've just done, stop now. We could run this on Monday, the day before Election Day. We could now record a new podcast conversation for this week about Nancy Pelosi, Paul Pelosi, and Twitter. Or we could try to do all that in the next 10 or 15 minutes and have one big omnibus DMZ episode that we throw out there. What do you want to do?
I'm agnostic.
You're agnostic. All right.
As I
That
am in
doesn't
life.
help. Do you think we could have the Pelosi and Twitter conversation in 10 or 15
Oh
minutes?
yeah, that's
Okay.
easy.
Well, we'll power through. But if you're listening to this or watching and you're appreciative that we are putting all this content out here for free. And by the way, if you're still listening, I'm guessing you are appreciative. Most people probably aren't, and they're not listening. But you should go to patreon.com/Bill Scher or patreon.com/Matt Lewis and wet our beak a little bit. Bill, let's start with the Pelosi's. Just a crazy story, right? I mean, we heard that this some guy breaks into the Pelosi's home in the middle of the night and bashes Paul Pelosi in the head with a hammer. Obviously, there's Republicans are saying, well, this guy is just mentally unstable. Democrats are saying, well, but there's this political environment out there that maybe political rhetoric might inspire vulnerable people. And then you've got this conspiracy theory that says Paul Pelosi, that this was like a gay tryst gone wrong. Um, it's a lot to digest, but what's your take on this?
I mean, it's insane to see, just a totally baseless conspiracy made up of a complete whole cloth catch on enough in such a short period of time that, and to go back to Arizona here, that Kari Lake doesn't feel any kind of obligation to just do the standard decent thing and condemn the attack and wish Paul Pelosi a speedy recovery. She didn't actively push the conspiracy directly, but she made a crack about Pelosi, about that they couldn't protect the House properly, something like that. Which I do think
it wasn't even funny, but apparently everyone thought.
But to the crowd, it was. What a joke is as funny as the crowd thinks it is. She can't be ignorant about what's swirling on far right sites because she is definitely in that ecosystem.
Now, let me say, Bill, there were look, I don't buy into this conspiracy theory, and I've written about it, but there were some things that made the conspiracy theory catch on. One of them being, I'll just tell you like sort of what I heard or saw. So one thing was that the dispatch, there's a recording of the dispatch operator telling somebody, maybe the officers, what Paul Pelosi said. And the dispatch operator said that Paul Pelosi said this person's name is David and that he's a friend and that he's here waiting for Nancy. And so I don't know what Paul Pelosi actually said. Obviously, he's under duress. I'm guessing it's the middle of the night. Now, maybe he's had a few pops. I don't know, but it's 2:30 in the morning. He's awakened. He's in his underwear, which seems perfectly normal for that hour. But the thing about calling this person a friend led people to speculate that this was somebody that he knew. People were saying, like, why isn't there any video footage? I guess some now has surfaced, I guess, of the home, but in the first 72 hours at least, there wasn't any footage, surveillance footage of the home. People were saying that the glass was broken the wrong direction, which would lead people to believe that the guy maybe he came in, he was invited in, and they broke the glass the wrong direction. It falls out. And then also the initial police report, I believe, was that there was a third person there who opened the door. Now we know about the fog of war and people get things wrong and sort of in the heat of the moment. But there were weird discrepancies, I think, that aided those on the right who wanted to cast aspersions on this.
I haven't gone. I got I got too much. I don't have enough time in the day to like go debunk every line of what nonsense people put out there. So just I just don't even know of all the things that you said.
Oh, so
How
you
much
you had not heard these
I've
things?
heard these things. I've generally
Okay.
heard these things. I mean, I heard these things because Elon Musk pushed this conspiracy out there on his Twitter feed in response to a tweet from Hillary Clinton. Uh,
Yes.
I quote tweeted Elon Musk's thing, and I don't want to jump ahead of our Twitter discussion, but I said, here's Elon Musk, like literally spreading misinformation. And I got like 2,000 replies of Elon Musk fanboys yelling at me that how dare I, cast aspersions on what he's doing. And what about this? And what about this? What about this? And like our reaction was, "You're all insane. I'm going to spend my Sunday blocking you all, so you don't go in my feed." Uh, uh, but I just don't know to what extent they found like a little thread to pull in the actual police report, or what is just literally made up out of whole cloth. I don't know which of the things you laid out. I don't know what is what, and I don't care because we have a police report. We have bona fide police officers who have investigated this. We now have security footage that probably was unmonitored by the Secret Service.
And the guy
So
said the attacker, the alleged attacker, in
wait,
in the police report, said that he was there. And by the way, the guy had like zip ties and stuff, and he said he
yeah,
was
he
there.
also, he also has an entire website where he's spouting QAnon stuff top to bottom. We have an interview with a guy who was his boss who said he knows him better than anybody else. That said he went down this rabbit hole deep. He was an otherwise nice guy, but recently he bought into all this stuff, soup to
And I have
nuts.
no doubt they're saying that he used to be a left winger. I have no doubt. I mean, it
Who
doesn't
cares?
surprise me.
Who cares?
Yeah, it
It's
doesn't surprise me.
Carrie Lake donated to Obama. Donald Trump used to be pro-choice. Who cares? This is what he was doing right now. Um, so, uh, uh, so it, even if like it's one thing for like some rando on our bar stool to say, "Hey, this guy Paul said friend in the 911 transcript. Did you believe that?" Like people say stuff on their bar stool all the time. We now have a situation where because of not just the existence of social media, but one of the people who owns a huge chunk of social media gives this immediate oxygen based on nothing credible, uh, to the point where Republican candidates, and look, most of the Republican senators and congressmen I saw did the proper statements. I'm not trying to paint broad brushes here, but certain people in hotly contested races, or in case like Glenn Youngkin, I mean, he tried to walk it back, but like his gut reaction was to make a joke about it. Um, Not that he was buying the whole conspiracy, but he's playing to a crowd that is more interested in being mean to Pelosi and casting sympathy on someone who literally got his face bashed by a hammer. So, like, it should make us all pause, and maybe you'll have an impact in Arizona. I don't know. But just what's one more data point away. Uh, but we should be trying to draw some clear lines here so we don't completely go off the deep end as a country.
Yes. I mean, I wrote a piece at the Daily Beast this week about sort of just this post-truth world that we're in. I mean, there are two narratives. And I'm telling you, Bill, that a lot of people, a lot of just regular Republicans out there believe the Elon Musk, Don Jr. version of Paul Pelosi. And, he, by the way, the guy got it. The other thing that lends a kernel of verisimilitude to this is the fact that a month ago, Paul Pelosi or 2 months ago, he got a DUI. Part of the story is that he was drunk at a gay
Look,
bar or
we,
something
we,
or
we
other.
know how conspiracy theories work. You take
Yes.
really tangential data points and throw them into a cauldron with a bunch of your own nonsense and call it a new narrative. I mean, Art Bell did nutto stuff on the radio a long time ago, but he wasn't driving an entire party. Um,
Well, I mean, Bill, I'm just saying, I talked to a good friend of mine yesterday for years who, believes this theory. And by the way, this person actually lives in Arizona. And it's not the person, it's not our mutual. It's
Okay.
not our mutual friend.
Good to know. Good to know. Good to know.
I should clarify. So this is become a fairly mainstream thing, which is, of course, what happens when the richest person, what in the world, I'm not sure, a billionaire who has millions of followers and owns Twitter tweets the story. It's probably going to happen. Which leads us to Twitter, Bill.
Yes.
Elon Musk now owns Twitter. I have a friend who just gave up his blue check mark yesterday.
Have they taken him off already?
I think he just voluntarily surrendered it.
How do you voluntarily get rid of it?
I'm not sure how you do that, but he did it. But now there's talk about charging money to have a blue check mark.
Right.
I would say I've lost at least 500 followers in the past week.
Really?
Since Elon Musk officially bought Twitter. I'm assuming this is people who have quit in protest. Now, there have been other occasions where I've lost followers because Twitter's done a cleanup or they've gotten rid of like Russian bots or something. But this time, I'm assuming the hundreds of Twitter followers I've lost in the past week are people who are resigning in protest, not resigning, but just quitting the platform in protest. What's your take on all this?
I don't think I've lost any. I'm very concerned about it, and I said so on Twitter. That he's really testing me here, but even for me, I don't want to act like I'm being a great moralist here. This is mostly about self-interest. I'm worried he's ruining the platform, and that he will drive people away and it'll become a less useful platform. I mean, if I tweet something out about this and then my feed gets cluttered by a bunch of conspiracy nut jobs, it's not as useful a platform for me anymore. I don't want 2,000 people pushing Paul Pelosi conspiracy every time I tweet something. I can't have engagement with the people who I actually want to talk to if that's the case, and I can only block so many people.
He wants to make money. I don't blame him. It's a business, and he spent a lot of money on this. Too much money on this. It'd be nice if he's focused on like rockets and electric cars, but hey, he can spend his time the way he wants. But he needs to make money. I think rather than charging people for a blue check mark, because a blue check mark really is to confirm that you are who you say you are. That's the true purpose. It's not to establish a hierarchy.
Well, I mean, they're fraudulent accounts. Like this wasn't meant to be a status symbol.
Yeah, and of course it is, but the primary purpose of it is to confirm authenticity, that you are who you say you are. Rather than charging people for a blue check, I think he should charge everyone to be on the platform. Don't you think it would actually, if you had to pay $5 a month to just be on Twitter, regardless of whether you were, a check mark or not, that it would be a healthier, better platform?
It would be a much smaller platform.
Sure. Okay. I'm okay with that.
And would not have nearly the kind of reach that it does right now. It would just it'd be utterly transformational in not in an exciting Brave New World sort of way. Like it would become a tiny niche site.
Okay, but let me just make my argument. Maybe it's $2. Maybe it's not $5. There's a price point.
It could be 50 cents. He would lose the vast majority of his people.
There's a reason why. I used to work at the Leadership Institute, and they do these training seminars, and they charge they could afford to let you come for free. They'll charge like $10 because if you pay to go to a conference, you're going to pay attention. You're invested. I think the same way with voting. I don't want voting to be so easy that I can just do it on my phone. I think there ought to be some sort of, not something that's onerous, but some barrier of time or whatever. And don't you think that we would have a better quality environment on Twitter if there was some cost attached to, maybe it's per tweet. Maybe every time you tweet, it costs something.
You would not make money running a social media company.
I don't know, but Bill, what is this like? Wouldn't paying something raise the quality?
I mean, there were attempts to make kind of high quality social media sites, and they haven't panned out well.
But
It's
Twitter has the benefit of having become the site. It has, um, it's not a startup, right? I mean, this is where it's at.
well. Let me shift gears. I think going down
Okay.
this hypothetical, I think, is getting us away from the main issue. At least I think for you and me is do we stay on the site?
And would you
Is must
pay? Will you pay to stay? What's the word I'm looking for?
blue checked?
Well, no, but there's another term. But yeah, will you pay for that?
No, I will not. I'm not gonna. One, I don't want to give Musk any money. Two, I'm not sure what I would even get out of paying it. I mean, the blue check doesn't do all that much for me. Um, like one thing,
You may not know what it does for you.
well, I'll say this: when I got it, I definitely got more engagement from others. There's something that they did where I mean, my tweets might have gotten some preferential treatment, and I think other verified people started following me more readily after that. So I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not saying I got nothing out of it, but I'm not going to lose followers by losing it, and I don't necessarily have a whole lot of most of the value of what I'm doing is just getting my work in front of people that want to read it, just so they know it exists, and having some deeper engagement with readers about it. So I don't think I would lose that by
Don't you
losing
think
the
it's
blue check.
possible that you know how people talk about shadow banning happening? Don't you
Mm-hmm.
think it's possible the opposite could happen? That Musk could like people who are paying him for the blue check will also get goosed, that they're
Well, I
more
think he
likely
said
to
they
be
would get preferential placement in reply threads, for example. Um, so, but I don't really care about that enough. That's not worth any money to me.
okay.
Uh,
I will say, um, as much as I admire people taking a stand and all that, I am not going to be quick to give it up or to get off Twitter or to give up the blue check. Um, Twitter was incredibly important in my career. Um, and it's not as important today as it was, but uh, it was a very important development. And the fact that I was something of an early adopter of it, Twitter really gave me a benefit, a competitive advantage for a while in my career until other people kind of caught up to it and got on the platform and learned how to use it. And I really think that it's very important for what I do as a business. I'll put, if I do it, this will be a business expense. My LLC will pay for this, and
sure,
it'll be a
sure.
write off. And Elon was originally talking about $20. Now he's talking about eight a month. That's not going to break the bank for me with my business. And I use the word business very loosely, but
Mhm.
with my LLC, I think I would experiment for a while. I think I would stay on, keep the blue check, and see what happens. I don't know if I would have to sign up for a year or if I could just do it on a month by month basis, but I think I would want to feel out and see if sort of look before I leap, so to speak.
Well, sure. And look, I think I'm more reliant on Twitter than you are at this point. I mean, for me to leave Twitter would be a very big deal for me. That is the main way that I follow the news, because I keep a list of 2,000 journalists and like several hundred political data types, and like that's how I keep tabs on things. I don't know what I would do to track the news in this current media environment without that. Uh, and it's my main way of advertising the work that I do. I don't know if people would easily find my articles if they weren't following me on Twitter and being alerted when I
Yeah.
write something. Uh, and it's how I also engage with people and kind of build relationships with people who like my work. So it'd be very very hard professionally to walk away. But having said that, if he wrecks the place, if he ruins it first,
Well, yeah,
uh,
that goes without saying.
but here's my dilemma: if I wait too long to make the decision to jump, and people leave first, and get dispersed into the winds, I can then leave and try to set up shop somewhere else and build something. It takes years to build a platform
Yeah.
somewhere else. And if I have to start from a total scratch, where like
What are you
people
going to go
who've
to,
left this,
Bill? Parlor or Truth Social?
I mean, I think there's progressive alternatives that are cropping up, but who knows if they're going to have any legs or not. I don't even think if I was to jump, I'd even like think about an analogous social media site. I think about, okay, should I start a Substack? Should
Yeah,
I
that would be
do
the
more of my
way to
YouTube
go.
channel? Should I get an email list going again? So it would never, it would, right now I have 27,000 followers. I would never get back to that number probably ever again. But can I at least find, a few thousand who really, really like what I do, and be able to maintain some connection with them? If I wait too long, can I not even pull off that?
Yeah.
So
So you're saying that what you could do is now start, and you could do this anyway. You could do this even if you didn't get off of Twitter. You could start tweeting, join my Substack now. Who knows how long I'll be
if
here?
I had all the free time in the world, sure. My professional challenges is, I have a household to run. I have kids to raise. I got a dog. I have an elderly mother. I don't have all the time in the world. If I was
Yeah.
25 years old, absolutely, I'd be doing so much more stuff if I had more free time in the day. So on
Preach
one
it.
hand, if I cut the Twitter cord, there'd be something exciting about it that it would kind of force me to do these entrepreneurial things, which all things equal probably might be beneficial, but it would take a lot of time and time that I feel that I don't readily have. So
Yeah.
I feel very squeezed
But
by it. I mean, I'm angry about it. I'm angry that Elon Musk is treating this like a personal plaything. Like, he owns the company. You are the moderator of a global meeting. If you chair a committee, you don't just pop off wherever the hell you want.
he
You
sees
run
this
the
as a
meeting.
game. I mean, I think he's basically a nihilist or a hedonist, and he just wants to have fun and troll, and he doesn't think much about consequences. It's really amazing. I mean, I guess we've always had people like this, but they didn't have Twitter, you know? And so if you were like a weird, brilliant, eccentric businessman, uh, unless you bought a TV commercial, we didn't really know about it as much. But I have to say, Bill, Twitter, I mean, this probably goes without saying, but Twitter already is not nearly as fun as it used to be. I mean, I guess now I've been on Twitter since I think 2008. So like a substantial percentage of my life at this point. It's crazy to say, that I've been on Twitter that long, and it was really fun when it started, and now I've already given up for the most part. I mean, I use it to read the feed to gather information and intel, and I use it to promote my podcast, my podcast, and my um, writing my columns, but I don't really interact with people on it anymore. And in fact, quite often I'll be about to make a joke or a movie reference and I just delete it and stop myself because it's not worth it. Like the chance that like a flippant fun reference or joke is going to be get me embroiled in a days long dragging or explaining to someone who doesn't get the reference. Like it's just not worth it. And so that's sad. It used to be you used to be able to do that and talk to people and meet people on Twitter, and it was a much more fun place, but it hasn't been fun for a long time.
Well, I just found that I don't. I've never been like a huge person into blocking, but I found like there are a couple of people like, you're really just making this an unpleasant experience for me. I'm happy to engage with people with different viewpoints. That I actually enjoy and is useful professionally. But if you're just going to just drag me every single time I say anything, like life's too short.
Yeah.
So once people cross a certain line with me, I block, and
Yeah.
it makes Twitter a better experience for me, and I think for people who want to engage with me. What's frustrating to me about what happened over the weekend was if I'm getting flooded by like 3,000 people being rude, you spend all day blocking people, and it
Yeah.
becomes too much of a chore.
It's like whack-a-mole too. I mean, you're never going to get them all. Um, Tucker Carlson told me years ago when I worked for him, he said, would you give your keys, if your kids are in the car, would you give the keys to a drunk driver? And I'm like, no. And he says, well, you're doing that to your emotions when you listen to, commenters or trolls on Twitter. Like when you listen to them, you're basically handing your emotions over. It's like giving the keys to a drunk driver. Maybe not a perfect analogy, but I think he's right. Like, why should I allow crazy, weird, angry people on Twitter to impact if I feel good today, or if I'm bummed out? Well, but you know what? If you're reading the comments and people are like attacking you constantly, it's going to get you down. It's going to drag you down unless you've got an incredibly thick skin. So
Living
anyway,
Zen by Tucker Carlson.
wisdom, yeah, a lot of wisdom there. Bill, I think we may be approaching our record marathon DMZ. I don't know. We've gone over an hour. I don't know if we've gone this far over an hour, at least not in a while. So we should
We
probably wrap.
should call it a day. Not that
Call it
I could
episode.
talk to you all day, Matt. I could.
People got their money's worth. And maybe instead of paying for Twitter, you should be paying for the content you really like at patreon.com. So anyway,
could you have Patreon be your site? Does the platform work well enough that you could just post there?
It would be, what you would do is it would be very, the problem is you can't grow the Patreon community very well, but you can service your community. If you had, let's say you got 2,000 people who loved Bill Scher and were willing to pay $10 a month for Bill Scher, that could be your full-time job. And you could like do nothing but create video and audio and write things and communicate with them and interact with them. And it could be a great, awesome place. Now, you're not really going to grow unless they tell a friend. You're not going to grow that platform. But in terms of being a place where you could provide content and interaction, you definitely could do it on Patreon.
Food for thought. I know some people on Twitter said to me, don't go. I don't want to make a hasty decision about it, but I'm worried people are going to leave first. That's my big concern.
All right, everybody. To be continued. Follow us on Twitter at DMZ Show. Support us at patreon.com/Bill Scher or patreon.com/Matt Lewis. And check out the YouTube page, youtube.com/Matt Lewis. You could see this video and our Bill's dry erase board. So good stuff.
All right. Well, talk soon after the election.
All right. Thanks, Bill. See you all back here after the election in the DMZ. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.